So you have like a passion for work
Mhm.
that seemingly only most owners would have. Like my reward for taking out for doing something I don't like is a part of my job that I love. Like it's not like I get a little treat, like a little Starbucks or anything like that. When you're working, oh, how do I say this? Like, of course, I'm not talking to the CAs that are listening. Those CAs are rock stars, but like the other CA, the CA on your team that's not listening. Um,
Mhm.
that like what you're talking about requires a high amount of like passion and purpose for your work, passion for
Mhm.
work that I feel like is missing from a lot of CAs, like a lot of
Mhm.
CAs and just like front desk across all professions. It's a job. And like
Mhm.
no matter how much, like because even as the owner, sometimes you're like, oh my God, I do not want to do this job anymore. Somebody fire me. But nobody's firing you because it's your own job. Uh,
Yeah.
but like, how do you, as someone who works directly with the CAs, because it's one thing if you're coaching the doctor and you're like,
Mhm.
here's what you need to do. Here's you need to like pep up your team and like you need to be the visionary. But when you're working with CAs directly, like how do you tell them like, listen, Nancy, you gotta like get some zest in your life and love your job. Or like maybe Nancy isn't a good term because it might be more like the 21-year-olds.
Well, I actually had a Nancy that worked with me, so it's funny that you said that. So we'll just use that name, Nancy. So, well, two things I would definitely say is when you're saying zest for life, one of the things that we incorporate is the life coaching aspect, right? Because if you're happier outside of the office, you're going to be happier inside of the office. And a lot of times doctors look at it as like a disconnect, like they're two separate things, but it's more about combining that as well. Because one of the things I say is if you're hitting your goals outside, you're going to hit them inside too, right? Because then you just
Mm.
have that mentality, you're excited, you're going after it. But circling back, I would say, well, Nancy, when's the last time you looked at x-rays? When's the last time you got adjusted? Has your doctor gone and shared these testimonials with you, these stories, the fact that Mary was having migraines for years and now isn't? It all starts in order for a CA to have passion, to have ownership mentality, the doctor has to share or the CA has to ask, right? Because the CA is just as capable, if you're listening to this, to ask your DC
Thank you.
to share those stories with you. It would always amaze me that when I would get adjusted sometimes at my office, that patients would look at me and say, "Oh, you get adjusted too?" And I'm like, of course I get adjusted too. Like, how could I be talking to you about chiropractic if I'm not a patient myself? My x-rays were actually the screensaver in the report room so that the patients, when they would come in, I was the example. So they would already bond with me and take it to a deeper level. So there's so many ways to ignite passion in somebody. But if somebody is just starting out new, they don't know what chiropractic is, we have to share that with them. Or else how are they going to get passionate about something they know nothing about?
So what do you do when like I'm still trying to wrap my head around like you cutting straight to the CA, which is what most docs say are going to say they want because they're too busy, too bored, too lazy, too tired, too whatever to inspire and train and lead the doc or like honestly not even to like well this kind of goes into like they're too tired like I've said, like, I don't know that I can say it in a different way. Like, you've worked with me for 4 years, or, like, I don't know how to, like, get, like, so there is sometimes this, like, peanuts, like,
Okay.
thing coming from the doc. But, like, when you go directly to the CA, did they ever come back and just be like, well, I was fired up, but my doc doesn't want to do any of these changes? No, I
Yes.
told him I could take over this, or I could start talking to patients about this, but, like and I don't know why all of a sudden he's a he, but, like, he was like, "No, I don't want you to do that." Like, how do you balance that part of this job?
Well, it's all about, again, sometimes we have to plant seeds or ease DCs into something that's new, especially if they've been working a certain way for a long time and something's new. And now, the CA never asked to see testimonies and things like that. And now all of a sudden they're asking. So I have found that sometimes it takes a little bit of time and that repetition of asking, but then there's also the showing, because when the CA starts to get fired up and the
Mhm.
DC who maybe has been burnt out or is a little bit tired sees his CA suddenly asking referral statements or asking a question of like, what's that on the x-rays, it kind of starts to re-inspire them. And it almost internally becomes like this healthy competition too, where all of a sudden the DC can't kind of let the CA, like that ego
Be
comes into
more
play.
passionate about
Yeah,
chiropractic than they
yeah.
are?
But it does reignite inside, because that most chiropractors, you got into it because you care about helping people. Like that was the number one reason. And then now, it is hard to run a chiropractic business and office. There's all these expenses. You're asking the same patient, the same referral statement time and time again with no results. So how do you get relit up? And when you see your CA doing it, it's almost like whenever you have a new team member come in, like a new hire, right? All of a sudden you're kind of sitting up a little bit straighter. You want to show off, you want to answer the phone correctly. It's the same idea mentally.